Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Board Game Buys. This episode covers all of the games that I picked up in June 2024. Now, I wasn't actually expecting to pick up many games, if any games at all, considering the UK Games Expo was at the beginning of the month. But here we are with 8 new games plus 1 new expansion. But before I get started on the games and expansion, I want to give a shout out to the show's sponsor, KIENDA.co.uk, who are my go-to online retailer. And if you use the link in the show notes or the QR code, then you can get 5% off your first order. But let's get cracking with the games, and we're going to start with Expeditions Around the World. Now, this is a reprint of an older Wolfgang Kramer game, so Super Meeple have picked this one up, and this one has been on my wish list for a very long time. So this is kind of a route building style game, as you and your opponent are communally moving these arrows around this map, and the idea is that you have a bunch of these location cards in your hand, as well as some in a common row. You are trying to move these arrows around to hit your locations, but of course, as you're moving things to hit your locations, you might hit other people's locations on the way. You're going to get points based on how many of your locations you visit, potentially losing points with cards in your hand remaining at the end of the game, as well as either gaining or losing points based on these kind of hotspot locations that you assign at the beginning of the game. Now, I have played this one once. Again, with all these games, I'm going to kind of hold back on my thoughts on them. This is more just to show you what is coming up for review. But yeah, finally got Expeditions Around the World into my collection. Moving on then to another older game. This is Circus Floti, another one that I've been really searching high and low for quite a long time. It's been out of print and especially difficult to get a copy here in the UK. Now, I do have the slightly uglier version of the game here because there are quite a few reprints of this Reini Knizia Push Your Luck game, and I actually got the ugly one, so I actually, well, widely considered the ugly game. I think it's actually quite funny looking. But this is a Push Your Luck game, as you are flipping cards from a deck, trying not to reveal 2 of the same colour. If you do, you'll end turns essentially, or you can pick up a card, and basically the highest card of each colour is going to score you points based on that figure. But there are also some additional ways to score points as well. So there are different ways you can, tackle the game essentially. So that is Circus Floti. On to a brand new game now though. This is Courtesans. So this is a kind of a set collection style game with a bit of commodity speculation, because you are trying to collect these characters, and these characters' value will either be positive or negative points based on other cards that you and your opponents are playing at this kind of banquet table. So you know, obviously if you are collecting a certain suit, you want to be trying to raise the value of that suit as much as possible, whereas your opponents might be trying to tank it. There are also some kind of hidden ways you can manipulate that scoring as well. So this kind of reminds me of, a bit like Biblios, and also a bit like a game called Gift of Tulips, which I already have in my collection. But it sounds good. I've yet to play this one. That is Courtesans. Picked up another relatively new game now. This one came out in 2023. This is Donuts by Bruno Cathala, actually. So, generally speaking, I'm not a big fan of Bruno Cathala games, but this one did appeal to me, and I'm kind of getting more into my abstract strategy games at the moment. This one is a twist on the classic game Othello, but this one has much more of a cutesy look and vibe to it, as you're placing these donuts on this variable grid here, trying to get 5 in a row. You can see that wherever you place will set up where your opponent can go in the following turn. So if I placed here, for example, my opponent can only place in this diagonal direction. The twist on this one is that if you ever place one of your donuts in between another player's 2 kind of bookended donuts, then you'll flip them over to your colour. So you can imagine that as the board populates, things are chopping and changing between you and your opponent. It only takes around 10 minutes to play. That is Donuts. Sticking on the abstract strategy genre, I picked up a copy of Devon. So this is part of the GIPF series that was really big about 20 years ago now, and there was quite a few games in this series. This one is considered one of the better ones, along with one called Yinch. I've not played Yinch. I've played quite a bit of Devon now. Now this is a very purist style game, as you are trying to get the biggest stack of your colour. It's a two-player only game. One plays the white pieces, one's the black pieces. And what you're trying to do is you are trying to move your discs to land on other people's pieces. The height of that tower is going to show how many spaces you can move. And you're trying to have the highest kind of tower at the end of the game by adding all your pieces together. But there are twists where these red pieces will show what can or cannot remain on the board, because you always need to be touching one of those red pieces. And if you're not, all of those pieces are wiped from the board, which can have some pretty catastrophic results or impact on the game. So it's quite a cool one. That is Devon. And I've got 3 more games here that I didn't buy myself. My brother bought these ones, but I'm actually interested in all of them. So the first one is Flip Town. So this is a newish flip and write style game with a cool theme. This Wild West theme I tend to enjoy. From looking at the box here, it looks like it uses these poker cards to do your actions, which I think is quite a cool idea. Mechanically, I don't really know what's going on here, but it does look from the sheets here that it's quite advanced. There's quite a lot going on, so probably a step up from your simple traditional flip and roll and write games. That step above, 30 to 45 minutes. This one I'm going in with an open mind. I know the initial reviews and impressions from people is that it's very good, so hopefully that is the case. Another flip and write style game now. We have Pioneer Rails, another one with those Western themes. This one has 2 amazing designers, Matthew Dunstan and Jeffrey Allers. I tend to like a lot of the games that they put out there. And again, this one seems to be driven by these poker style cards. So these 2 will actually be quite cool games to compare with each other. Another 45-minute game, another flip and write style game. This one looks more like a route building and a connecting places style flip and write rather than the tick things off style game. So it would be, again, interesting to contrast them in that respect too. Other than that, I don't really know what to do. Well, what this game entails, but it does say that there's multi-use cards here, which is another mechanism I really like. That mixed with the theme, that mixed with the pedigree of the designers, I'm very optimistic. So that is Pioneer Rails. And the final game here is Discordia. So this one, a more traditional Euro style game. This is actually designed by Bernd Eisenstein, who's I have played games of his before that I've really enjoyed, and I think this one has a similar vibe to Peloponnese, which is another game he designed, where in this one you are trying to shed your workers essentially. So I believe it's a worker placement style game, but the winning condition is to get rid of all of your workers, which I think is quite a cool twist on the on that style of game. So there's so many worker placement games out there now that a little twist like that can separate it from the pack. Again, I'm not sure of the details of this game. It's not mine. I didn't pick this one up. I've not read the rules, but I like my dice-driven Euros. Another good designer. I like Roman themes as well. So again, a lot of the hallmarks, a lot of the signs are looking positive for Discordia. And the final game or expansion I'm talking about here is the Alpine expansion to Forest Shuffle. So I don't have this one here physically because it's on the way in the mail. But I think it's just more cards, another tree type for one of my favourite multi-use card games or hand management set collection style games, Forest Shuffle, which was a brilliant game that came out last year. So excited to see that one, and hopefully it doesn't add too much more mechanically, but it just adds more cards into the mix. So that is the Alpine expansion to Forest Shuffle. And that's it, really. That's all of the games that I have acquired, in addition to that massive input of games from the UK Games Expo. But there's so many good games out there that I want to play, and this is just a few more of them. And I'm actually really excited to try and talk about all of these. There's none here that I'm really just half-hearted on. I think they're all really cool in their own right. So that's all the games I've acquired. Hopefully you have enjoyed the video. If you have, please be sure to hit like and subscribe to the channel and check out my other content too. But for everybody else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye-bye.